Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. We begin in the name of Almighty Allah, the most magnificent, the ever merciful. We glorify Him, we praise Him, and of course we do elevate His name as He ought to be elevated. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Once again, I extend to you the eternal and of course the universal salutation of peace. May the peace, blessings and mercies of Almighty Allah be upon you and yours. A most pleasant good morning going out to one and all of this beautiful, beautiful Friday morning. We are now coming to the end of another week. We are heading towards the weekend. And as always, I do pray and hope that you are healthy, you are well. And of course, you are enjoying a period of happiness, a period of prosperity and well-being. Well, I'm your host and brother in humanity, Imam Safraz Ghani, here in your company once again on this auspicious and holy day of Friday, the day of Jum'ah here in Trinidad and Tobago. Jummah Mubarak going out to you and yours. And of course, before we go any further, I must take the opportunity to say a very special thank you going out to Pandit Kunj Bihari for his previous rendition on Vidya Jyoti. And of course, we do wish him a safe and a speedy trip back home. All praises are due to Almighty Allah, the Lord of the worlds, the magnificent, the merciful, Master of the Day of Judgment. O Allah, it is you do we worship, and from you only do we ask for help. Guide us to the straight path, the path of those upon whom you have bestowed your favor, not the path of those who have evoked your anger, nor the path of those who have gone astray. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Well, today's Islamic date is the 6th day of the month of Dhul Qa'dah. We have currently now entered the 11th month on the Islamic calendar. As a matter of fact, last Saturday evening, which was the 18th of April, the moon was looked for to bring to an end the month of Shawwal, to bring to an end the 10th month on the Islamic calendar. So on that particular evening, Saturday the 18th of April, the moon was looked for, and I can report to you that the moon was sighted, as a result of which the 10th month, the month of Shawwal, completed 29 days, and then we rolled over on Sunday to the new month, the month of Dhul Qa'dah, the 11th month on the Islamic calendar. So we have now rolled over to a new month on the Islamic front. We are currently in the year 1447, and today also coincides with the fourth and the last Friday in the month of April for the year 2026. So we are coming towards the end of another month as well on the Gregorian calendar. So as always, the days, the weeks, the months will roll by. The question you need to ask yourself constantly is how best are you making use of the time given to you by the Almighty. Well, on that note, as we are now getting ready to commence the holy day of Jum'ah here in Trinidad and Tobago, of course, allow me now to take the opportunity to officially welcome you live on air, live on the internet, live across our social feeds on Facebook and on YouTube as well for this weekly program titled Soul Inspirations, your program for inspiration, information, education and entertainment. As always, it's indeed an absolute pleasure to have you on board. Definitely do stick around as we work our way up to the 6 o'clock mark. I've got so much to share with you as we continue on with this edition of Soul Inspirations right here on 103.1 FM.
फासलों को तकल्लुफ है हमसे अगर हम भी बेबस नहीं, बेसहारा नहीं, खुद उन्हीं को पुकारेंगे हम दूर से, रास्ते में अगर पाँव थक जाएंगे। फासलों को तकल्लुफ है हमसे अगर हम भी बेबस नहीं, बेसहारा नहीं। हम मदीने में तन्हा निकल जाएंगे और गलियों में कस्तन भटक जाएंगे। हम वहाँ جا کے واپس نہیں آئیں گے، ڈھونڈتے ڈھونڈتے لوگ تھک جائیں گے، فاصلوں کو تکلف ہے ہم سے اگر ہم بھی بے بس نہیں بے سہارا، جیسے ہی سبز گنبد نظر آئے گا، بندگی کا کریر بدل جائے گا، سر جھکانے کی فرصت ملے گی کسے، خود ہی پلکوں سے سجدے ٹپک جائیں گے، نام آقا جہاں بھی لیا جائے گا، ذکر ان کا جہاں بھی کیا جائے گا، نور ہی نور سینوں میں بھر جائے گا، ساری محفل میں جلوے لپک جائیں گے، فاصلوں کو تکلف ہے ہم سے اگر ہم بھی بے بس نہیں بے سہارا نہیں۔
Yes, indeed, a wonderful nasheed to kickstart things off on the program this morning. You're tuned in, of course, to Soul Inspirations right here on 103.1 FM with yours truly, Imam Sarfraz Ghani. And as always, I must say, it's indeed an absolute honor and, of course, a personal pleasure to be in your company once again for around about the next hour or so. Thank you so much for the pleasure of your company. May the blessings and the mercies of the Almighty be with you always. Well, the program this morning is being brought to you through the kind courtesies of Nicer Brand Products Limited, The Original Barbecue Hut Limited, Absolute Investments Limited, Adams Project Management and Construction Limited, and Point Fortin Hardware Limited. Of course, just as a reminder, you can send me a message via the WhatsApp number 2994103. Alternatively, you can shoot me a message via the social feeds across on Facebook and on YouTube as well. Well, on the program this morning, we've got a very, very interesting segment, as we always tend to do here on 103.1 FM lined up for you. We've got our inspirational segment coming up in just a short bit. I've got a few beautiful Islamic selections lined up for you as well. We've got the early morning call to prayer coming up in just a short bit as well. A bit later on in the program, as we get into our lecture segment, this morning I'm talking about the harms of passing on your trauma onto others. That's our discussion point for this morning. The harms of passing on your trauma, your traumatic experiences on to others. The transfer of trauma, as they say. So that's our discussion point coming up in our lecture segment. Definitely, whatever you do stick around. It's a pleasure to have you on board once again. May the blessings and the mercies of the Almighty be with you. Jummah Mubarak going out to you and yours.
Mustafa, 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 Mustafa. سید الاولین سید الاخرین وہ ہے میرا نبی، وہ ہے میرا نبی، تجھ سا کوئی نہیں، تجھ سا کوئی نہیں، مصطفیٰ 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 مصطفیٰ، شفیع مذنبی خاتم المرسلین، وہ ہے میرا نبی، وہ ہے میرا نبی، تجھ سا کوئی نہیں، تجھ سا کوئی نہیں، مصطفیٰ 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 مصطفیٰ، سب سے پہلے مشیت کے انوار سے، سب سے پہلے مشیت کے انوار سے نقش روئے محمد بنایا گیا، پھر اسی نقش سے مانگ کر روشنی بزم کون و مکان کو سجایا گیا، مصطفیٰ 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 مصطفیٰ، رحمت دو جہاں احمد مصطفیٰ، وہ ہے میرا نبی، وہ ہے میرا نبی، تجھ سا کوئی نہیں، تجھ سا کوئی نہیں، مصطفیٰ 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 مصطفیٰ، سید الانبیاء سرور اصفیاء، وہ ہے میرا نبی، وہ ہے میرا نبی، تجھ سا کوئی نہیں، تجھ سا کوئی نہیں، مصطفیٰ 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 مصطفیٰ، وہ محمد بھی احمد بھی محمود بھی، وہ محمد بھی احمد بھی محمود بھی، حسن مطلق کا شاہد بھی مشہود بھی، علم و حکمت میں وہ غیر محدود بھی، ظاہراً امیوں میں اٹھایا گیا، مصطفیٰ 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 مصطفیٰ،
Allah's blessings and mercies to you and yours on this beautiful, beautiful Friday morning. It is, of course, the day of Jum'ah. Jum'ah Mubarak going out to you as well. And, of course, as we look forward to another day in our lives, as we give thanks for the blessings of another day, it's important to remember that sometimes in life, the pathway ahead can become a bit cloudy. The pathway ahead can become a bit uncertain. But I want to give you a little piece of advice. If you don't know what to pursue in life right now, if the pathway ahead is uncertain, if the pathway ahead is a bit cloudy and you are unsure what to pursue, then pursue yourself. Quite simply, pursue becoming the healthiest, the happiest, the most healed, the most present, the most confident version of yourself right now. And once you can accomplish that, then all of a sudden the right path will reveal itself unto you. Trust in the Almighty. Put your best foot forward, as they say, and eventually you will overcome what you are fighting through right now. You will find that inner peace. And one day, the struggle that you are going through right now won't feel as strong as it does at this particular moment in your life. So whatever you do, be patient and keep working towards a better you. Be patient, stay connected to the Almighty, and keep striving and walking a path that contributes to a better you. So on that note, I want to say to you, may Allah bless you this day. May He continue to shower upon you His blessings and His mercies in this upcoming day, this upcoming week, the upcoming month, the upcoming year, as the case may be. May He open all the doors of mercy upon you. May He continue to guide your footsteps towards all that is good, towards happiness and prosperity, and may He grant you the strength and the courage to be able to face the challenges that will come your way this day and throughout the remaining portion of your life. I want to take the opportunity as well to say a very special thank you going out to the sponsors. The program this morning, of course, is being brought to you through the kind courtesies of Nicer Brand Products Limited, The Original Barbecue Hut Limited, Absolute Investments Limited, Adams Project Management and Construction Limited, and Point 14 Hardware Limited. Well, just around the corner, we've got a inspirational segment coming up. Definitely do keep it locked on to 103.1 FM. This is yours truly, Imam Safraz Ghani, and you are listening to Soul Inspirations. So this morning, let me share with you this small anecdote. So once, there was a woman who had been lost in the desert for 3 whole days without water. Just as she was about to collapse, she saw in front of her what appeared to be a lake, just a few hundred yards. She immediately thought to herself, could it really be water? Or is it just a mirage? So with the last bit of strength she could muster up, she staggered towards the lake and quickly learned that her prayers had indeed been answered. Because it was not a mirage, it was indeed a large spring-fed lake full of fresh water. More fresh water than she could ever drink in her entire lifetime. Yet while she was literally dying of thirst, she could not bring herself to drink from the water. She simply stood by the water's edge and stared down into it. Now at this time there was a passerby riding on a camel from a nearby desert town who was watching the woman's bizarre behavior. So he got off of his camel and he walked up to the thirsty woman and he asked, why don't you have a drink? The water is there in front of you. Why don't you have a drink from the water? In that way you will be able to quench your thirst. So the woman looked up at the man with an exhausted, distraught expression across her face and she said, I am dying of thirst, but there is way too much water here in this lake for me to drink. No matter what I do, I can't possibly finish all of it. So the passerby smiled, he bent down, he scooped some water up with his hands and he lifted it to the woman's mouth and said, ma'am, your opportunity right now. And as you move forward for the rest of your life, your opportunity is to understand that you don't have to drink the entire lake in order to quench your thirst. You don't have to consume all of the water. You can simply take one sip, just one small sip, and then another if you choose to do so. But the trick is that you should focus only on the mouthful in front of you. And if you can do that, all of your anxiety, all of your fears about the rest will gradually fade away. So the challenge for you this morning is that throughout the day, focus solely on the sip or the task or that step that you are actually taking. You don't have to focus on the entire task in front of you. And honestly speaking, That's all there is to life. Small, positive actions that you take step by step, moment by moment, and then one day when you look back, it all adds up to something worthwhile, something that's often far better and far different than what you had imagined when you initially started. So the key is to take small, positive, consistent steps. Not huge transformations overnight, not dramatic overnight success, not a perfect routine you can maintain for 1 week and then quit. Instead, we are talking about those small actions, things you can do even when you don't feel motivated, repeated faithfully, consistently enough that your life begins to change almost without you even noticing it. Because the truth is, life doesn't usually change in one giant moment. It changes through accumulation. Like water slowly shaping a rock over time, drip by drip. Like a plant pushing through the soil bit by bit, day after day. That has to be your mentality, your approach to life as well. So let me ask you this question. What if you stop waiting for the right time? What if you stop waiting for the right mood and instead begin to do something small, something positive right now, again and again? Most people think that change requires motivation, but motivation sometimes can be unreliable. Motivation is like the weather. Sometimes it's sunny, sometimes it's cloudy. And if your success depends on the weather, then you will constantly feel frustrated. And here's what usually happens. Normally, you will see a goal that you admire, you feel inspired, you plan aggressively, you start strong, and then all of a sudden life happens. Stress, fatigue, responsibilities, doubts, distractions, they all begin to come in the way. And when motivation fades, you convince yourself that I'm not that kind of person who can stick with things. That's just not my cup of tea. And then with that mentality, you end up throwing in the towel, so to speak. But here's a reason you might have most probably failed. And that reason is you probably would have tried too much too fast, with too much pressure piled on top of your shoulders. Small steps, however, are different because they don't require you to be the best version of yourself immediately. They require you only to be the current version of yourself right now. And the thing about small steps is that they create momentum. And that's a very, very important, powerful word. Now let's talk about momentum for a moment. Momentum is powerful. And most people underestimate how much momentum matters. When you take a small positive step, you get proof that you can follow through, that you do have it within you to accomplish. And then you grow in confidence. Not the kind of confidence that comes from fantasies, but the kind of confidence that comes from reality. And then, all of a sudden, something interesting happens. That step becomes easier to do the next time around, because consistently works like this. When you repeatedly do a small thing, your brain starts to treat it like part of your identity. You stop asking, should I do this? And then you start thinking, this is what I need to do. And that shift, that mental shift from deciding to identifying is where real change begins. Now, I want to also challenge a common misunderstanding. When people hear small steps, they sometimes assume it means small impacts. But small steps can have huge results. Small steps can have huge impacts on your life. Small steps do at least 4 important things in your life. Small steps will reduce resistance. If the task is small enough, you can begin even on difficult days. Number two, they will lower the risk of failure. You are not depending on perfection, you are depending on repetition. Number three, they create habit loops, so to speak. Your brain learns the pattern, and the pattern then becomes automatic. And number four, which of course is, I feel, the most important point, is that these small steps will compound over time. Small gains repeated consistently can eventually add up to major transformations in your life. So small is not weak. Small steps are not weak. A small step is a strategic approach to your life. And time is indeed the special ingredient, the secret ingredient in almost every worthwhile outcome. Most people, they want results immediately, but growth takes time. And growth doesn't come from one heroic effort, it comes from steady effort. And if you do something positive consistently, something small, your future self begins to look different. Think of it like this: every day you are making a deposit. Even if the deposit feels tiny, even if you don't see the balance in front of you yet, but rest assured, the account is growing. And one day you wake up and you realize that I have automatically become someone I used to envy. Now the next question is, how do you stay consistent? Well, consistency doesn't usually come from extreme willpower. It comes from systems. It's important that you make the step easy to begin with. You lower the step on bad days, and you repeat that step again and again. And by doing this, automatically it becomes part of your everyday schedule. So let me close with a challenge. From here onward, every single day of your life, make it a habit to choose one small positive step. So small that you can do it even when you are busy. And then commit to doing it consistently. And if you want a guiding rule, use this. Do it so small that you can't justify not doing it. Because once you prove to yourself that you can follow through, once you build belief, belief leads to action, and action then leads to change. Well, at this point on the program, we now go to the early morning call to prayer. The early morning call to prayer this morning is being brought to you through the kind courtesies of Absolute Investments Limited of Monroe Road in Canopier.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح. الصلاة خير من النوم. الله أكبر. لا إله إلا
رحمن يا رحمن ساعدني يا رحمن، اشرح صدري قرآن، املأ قلبي قرآن، واسق حياتي قرآن، واسق حياتي قرآن. رحمن يا رحمن ساعدني يا رحمن، اشرح صدري قرآن، املأ قلبي قرآن، واسق حياتي قرآن، واسق حياتي قرآن. لله لله يهفو آملي لله، ولحفظ كتاب الله من أول بسم الله للختم وللرضوان. يا نور يا نور يا محكم يا تنزيل لمحمد عن جبريل، من رب العرش دليل للعالم والإنسان. رحمن يا رحمن ساعدني يا رحمن، اشرح صدري قرآن، املأ قلبي قرآن، واسق حياتي قرآن، واسق حياتي قرآن. رحمن يا رحمن ساعدني يا رحمن، اشرح صدري قرآن، املأ قلبي قرآن، واسق حياتي قرآن، واسق حياتي قرآن. تكبير تكبير للحافظ وهو صغير، والضاء العين قرير، يحمل فجرا لينير بتلاوته الأكوان. الله الله اللهم اجمعنا بكتابك وانفعنا، واجعله لنا حسنا وهدى أبدا وأمان. رحمن يا رحمن ساعدني يا رحمن، اشرح صدري قرآن، املأ قلبي قرآن، واسق حياتي قرآن، واسق حياتي قرآن. رحمن يا رحمن ساعدني يا رحمن، اشرح صدري قرآن، املأ قلبي قرآن، واسق حياتي قرآن، واسق حياتي قرآن.
يا من هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الرحمن الرحيم، الملك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر الخالق البارئ المصور الغفار القهار الوهاب الرزاق الفتاح السميع العليم القابض الباسط الخافض الرافع المعز المذل السميع البصير الحكم العدل اللطيف الخبير الحليم العظيم الغفور الشكور العلي الكبير الحفيظ المقيم الحسيب الجليل الكريم الرقيب المجيب الواسع الحكيم الودود المجيد الباعث الشهيد الحق المكين القوي المتين الولي الحميد المحسن المبدي المعيد المحيي المميت الحي القيوم الواجد الماجد الواحد الصمد القادر المقتدر المقدم المؤخر الأول الآخر الظاهر الباطن الوالي المتعال البر التواب المنتقم العفو الرؤوف مالك الملك ذو الجلال والإكرام المقسط الجامع الغني المغني المانع الظاهر النافي النور الهادي البديع الباقي الوارث الرشيد الصبور
It's a way of life for all. It is taught in the Quran for big and small. A way of life, a way of life, a way of life, a way of life. Islam is a way of life, a complete way. Do you know what Islam says? It says that life's the greatest test. It says that life's a borrowed space, returned upon rest. A way of life, a way of life, a way of life, a way of life. Islam is a way of life, a complete way. Islam solves all of its problems. Allah leaves no stone unturned. Perfect with no flaws at all are the laws of Allah. A way of life, a way of life, a way of life, a way of life. Islam is a way of life, a complete way. It's a complete way.
Yes, indeed, it's a way of life. It's indeed a complete way. It's a way of life that will connect you to the Almighty and, of course, will help you to become a much better person upon the face of the earth. Well, at this point in the program, we now get into our lecture segment. And like I mentioned before this morning, we are talking about a very, very important topic. We are talking about the harms of passing your trauma on to others. So today I want to talk about something that many people have experienced, but few people are taught how to understand that concept. I want to discuss a subject that is often whispered about, but rarely dissected with the clinical and the emotional honesty that it deserves. the harms of transferring your trauma onto others, passing on your trauma onto others. When we hear the phrase passing trauma, it can sound like trauma is contagious in a simple way, just like a virus. But what we are actually talking about is that trauma can shape how a person interprets the world. Trauma can shape how they regulate their emotions and how they respond in relationships, and those patterns can affect the people around them. Now, this does not mean that anyone is bad or damaged beyond repair. It means that trauma can create patterns that over time may become a shared emotional environment. So trauma is known as the invisible inheritance. It is something that you may pass on subconsciously to another individual. We often think of trauma as a private wound, a scar you carry on your own skin. But the true fact of the matter is that trauma is rarely stationary. It's more like a pressurized gas. If it is not contained, if it is not processed or transformed, it then seeks an exit. And oftentimes that exit is through the people closest to you, your spouse, your children, your friends, and of course, your family members as well. So when you pass on trauma, so to speak, you aren't just sharing a story. You're offloading a psychological burden that the other person may not have been fully equipped to carry. So the question is, how is trauma passed on? Well, first of all, trauma can be passed on from a biological perspective, where a person lives in a state of chronic unhealed trauma. Their body is flooded with cortisol and adrenaline. If you are a parent who is passing a stressful environment down to your child, you aren't just teaching them to be nervous. You are physically altering their nervous system. And research on the descendants of survivors of major historical atrocities shows that children can be born with a thinned stress response system. So the harm here is that the recipient is forced into a state of high alert for a battle that they never fought. They inherit the symptoms of trauma: the racing heart, the sleep disturbances, the hypervigilance, without the context of the original event taking place in their life. And it is indeed a profound injustice to force a developing body to carry the chemical weight of a previous generation's nightmares. You are essentially giving them a survival kit for a war that would have ended years ago, but the kit itself is so heavy that it then eventually breaks their backs. The second way trauma can be passed on is through your relationships. The second harm is the destruction of the relationship mirror, so to speak. So in healthy relationships, we act as mirrors for one another. We reflect safety, we reflect self-worth, we reflect stability, we reflect reliability. However, when you pass on trauma, you shatter that mirror. And instead of seeing themselves, the other person sees your triggers. And this manifests in three damaging ways. Firstly, emotional displacement. This is when you react to a loved one's minor mistake with the intensity of the original trauma. If your trauma involved abandonment and your partner is 10 minutes late for dinner, you don't just feel annoyed, you feel a soul-crushing terror, so to speak. And you then project that terror onto them. The harm here is that the other person begins to walk on eggshells, so to speak. They lose their freedom of movement because they are constantly trying to avoid the landmines of your past. Secondly, parentification. This happens often in a parent-child dynamic. When a parent passes their trauma down the roles flip. The child then becomes the emotional caretaker of the parent, so to speak. The child learns that their own needs are secondary to managing the parent's big emotions, and this robs the child of their childhood. They grow up too fast, carrying an adult-sized sense of responsibility that stunts their own emotional development. And thirdly, the normalization of dysfunction. When you pass on trauma, you teach others that this is just how love looks. You define love as hostile, or you define love as silence, or you define love as fear. And that becomes the norm, so to speak. So you aren't just hurting them in the moment, you are sabotaging every future relationship they will ever have by giving them a broken map of human connection, so to speak. Now, the third and the most insidious harm is what is known as identity displacement. When you pass your trauma to someone else, you are essentially overwriting their story with yours. Think about a child raised by a parent who never healed from a specific fear. Let's say, it's a fear for the outside world, for example. Now, that child doesn't grow up exploring their own interests. They grow up exploring their parents' boundaries. The harm is that the recipient of the trauma begins to mistake your triggers for their own personality. They say that I am just an anxious person. That's just who I am. Or I don't like taking risks, without realizing that those aren't their traits. They are echoes of your unhealed wounds. And we see this in intergenerational narratives. Families will say that in this family we don't trust outsiders. Or in this family we keep our feelings to ourselves. These aren't values, they are defense mechanisms. And when you pass these down, you rob the next generation of the ability to define themselves. You force them to live a reactive life instead of a proactive life. And they are so busy defending against your old ghosts that they never have the energy to build their own dreams. Now, in these situations of trauma transfer, it is important to become the cycle breaker. Be the one that breaks the cycle of passing on the trauma. Why does breaking the cycle matter? It matters because trauma is a cycle that gains momentum with every handoff. The harm of passing it on is that it creates a compounded interest effect of suffering. Each person who receives the trauma adds their own pain to it before passing it on to another person. So it's a compounded effect. But there are huge benefits in becoming the cycle breaker. This is the person who decides that even though they were handed a heavy burden, they will not hand it to the next person. Breaking the cycle is indeed an act of immense courage. It's an act of immense exhaustion. It requires great courage. It requires turning the lead of the trauma into the gold of wisdom through therapy, through self-reflection, and radical accountability. The harm of not being the cycle breaker is that you stay stuck in time and you force everyone around you to stay stuck right there with you as well. So what does breaking the pattern looks like? Breaking the pattern requires three very important elements. Number one, it requires awareness, it requires repair, and it requires support. Be aware of your emotions. Make an effort to repair those emotions. And then, of course, if you need to, look for support of good people around you. Keep good people around you who will continue to motivate you to become a better version of your life. So in a nutshell, passing on trauma is not usually a choice made out of malice. It's a choice made out of desperation. You pass it on because you feel you simply cannot hold on to it anymore. but the harm is undeniable. It ages the bodies of your children, it suffocates the intimacy of your marriage, and it steals the identities of those who look to you for guidance. So you basically have a choice. Either you pass on the trauma of your past to others and create more havoc, or you put a stop to it right now and you create a safe environment of growth for yourself and for those around you. You choose. And the most profound gift you can give to the people you love is not your protection, it's not your wealth, it is your own healing. It is the decision to say that this ends with me. And when you stop passing on your trauma, you finally allow the people around you to see who they are rather than who you need them to be. May Allah make it easy upon us, and may Almighty Allah guide us always towards that which is good in this life as well as in the life of the hereafter.
I raise my hands in the dead of night, asking God for a better life. And I know that He'll be there in the moment. His mercy's not equivalent, magnificent and infinite, the one I'll always turn to when I'm broken. Ya Ilahi, Ya Ilahi, Ya Ilahi, Ya Ilahi. سألت ربي ذا الجلال مغفرة فها النداء يزيل عني ما في قلبي يا من تنادي إنني قريب ولك أجيب لدمعة تنادي يا إلهي يا إلهي يا إلهي يا إلهي يا إلهي.
Well, unfortunately, on that note, we now look to drop curtains on this particular hour. I must take the opportunity to say a very special thank you going out to the sponsors. The program this morning has been brought to you through the kind courtesies of Nicer Brand Products Limited, The Original Barbecue Hut Limited, Absolute Investments Limited, Adams Project Management and Construction Limited, and Point 14 Hardware Limited. I also must take the opportunity as well to say a very special salam, greetings of peace going out to you and yours, our listeners and viewers who would have joined us on the program this morning. Thank you so much for your kind messages. Thank you so much for your kind words. May the blessings and the mercies of the Almighty be with you. Of course, it was indeed an absolute pleasure to be in your company over the past hour or so. By all means, you can catch me once again, God willing, next Friday from 5 a.m. as we bring to you another segment of Soul Inspirations, your program for inspiration, information, education and entertainment. I'm your host and brother in humanity, Imam Safraz Ghani, signing out for this morning. Until next week Friday, please do have an extremely blessed day, a blessed weekend, a blessed week. Stay safe, stay in the mercy of the Almighty. Much love, and may the peace, blessings and mercies of Almighty Allah be with you. Well, up next is News at 6, followed by Prabhat. Most definitely do keep it locked on to 103.1 FM for more inspirational and of course motivational programming throughout the course of today. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
लब पे आती है दुआ बन के तमन्ना मेरी
لب پہ آتی ہے دعا بن کے تمنا میری، زندگی شمع کی صورت ہو خدایا میری، زندگی شمع کی صورت ہو خدایا میری، ہو میرے دم سے یوں ہی میرے وطن کی زینت، ہو میرے دم سے یوں ہی میرے وطن کی زینت، جس طرح پھول سے ہوتی ہے چمن کی زینت، جس طرح پھول سے ہوتی ہے چمن کی زینت، زندگی ہو میری پروان کی صورت یا رب، زندگی